Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of Damascus Steel, the forgotten metallurgy that could slice silk. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. Medieval Islamic swordsmiths produced blades of a quality that modern metallurgists could not match for centuries. Damascus steel, wootz steel, as it was known in India, where the raw material originated, held a razor edge that dulled slowly, combined extreme hardness with flexibility that prevented shattering, and bore a distinctive surface pattern of flowing waves that was the visual signature of the material's extraordinary internal structure. According to legend, a Damascus blade could split a hair dropped on its edge and slice through a silk scarf thrown against it. European crusaders who encountered Damascus blades were astonished. Their own blades, forged from inferior iron, were simply not in the same class. Attempts to reverse engineer the technology began in the 15th century and continued for over 500 years without success. Then the supply of the specific Indian ore that made the steel stopped, and with it, the knowledge of how to produce the material. By the 18th century, Damascus steel was gone. Its rediscovery in the 21st century was one of metallurgy's most remarkable achievements, and what researchers found inside the blades was something that should not have been there. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the wider world of ancient technological anomalies, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Ancient technical knowledge is remarkably vulnerable. It lives in the hands of craftsmen, in the minds of engineers, in the institutional memory of workshops and guilds. When a civilization collapses through invasion, plague, climate change, or internal conflict, that knowledge can vanish within a single generation. There is no guarantee that what is written down will be preserved, and much ancient knowledge was never written down at all. It was transmitted orally, apprentice to master, in a chain that a single catastrophe could permanently sever. This vulnerability helps explain what might otherwise seem impossible, that the ancient world possessed capabilities we did not recover for centuries or millennia. The Romans knew how to make self-healing concrete by mixing volcanic ash with seawater. When the empire fell, the recipe was forgotten. Medieval European builders worked with inferior materials for over 1,000 years before the technique was rediscovered through analysis of surviving Roman structures. The knowledge did not disappear because it was suppressed or hidden. It simply died with the people who held it. Apply this principle more broadly, and the anomalies of the ancient world become less mysterious, not in the sense of being explained, but in the sense of being plausible. If Rome could lose a concrete formula for a millennium, what else might have been lost? What might advanced cultures in earlier epochs have discovered and then lost, leaving only fragmentary traces? A strange artifact here, a suggestive diagram there, that later generations would struggle to interpret. This is the question at the heart of every anomalous discovery from the ancient world. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding Damascus steel, the forgotten metallurgy that could slice silk, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Damascus steel was produced from wootz steel ingots manufactured in India and Sri Lanka using a crucible smelting process that created a hypereductoid steel with extremely high carbon content, approximately 1.5 to 2% compared to 0.2 to 0.6% in conventional steel. The high carbon content, combined with specific trace elements in the ore, produced the material's unique properties. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the distinctive surface pattern of Damascus blades, the Damascene pattern, results from the presence of cementite iron carbide bands in the steel matrix that form during slow cooling of the high-carbon material. These bands preferentially etch to reveal the pattern during polishing. The pattern is not decorative surface treatment, but an expression of the material's internal structure. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this. And that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. Research by German metallurgist Peter Porfler and colleagues, published in Nature in 2006, found carbon nanotubes in a Damascus steel blade from the 17th century, a nanoscale structure not expected in historical steel and not definitively synthesized in laboratories until the late 20th century. The nanotubes formed naturally from specific combinations of carbides during the production process. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the loss of Damascus steel production occurred around the early 18th century and appears to have been caused by the depletion of the specific ore deposits in India that provided the trace elements necessary for the material's properties. The knowledge of production existed, the raw material did not. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of multiple modern metallurgists and historians have partially replicated Damascus steel blades using reconstructed historical techniques, but achieving the full combination of properties, edge retention, flexibility, pattern quality, consistently remains difficult. The specific ore chemistry of the original material has proven hard to reproduce. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. The carbon nanotube finding in the Porfler study was initially controversial and has not been replicated in all studies of Damascus steel. Some researchers argue the nanotube-like structures are cementite whiskers rather than true carbon nanotubes. The debate reflects the difficulty of materials analysis on complex historical metallurgical products. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly, it is part of a consistent and documented pattern. Equally puzzling to investigators, other ancient cultures produced high-quality steel by different methods. Japanese swordsmiths devilo pedtamahagane, a folded steel of extraordinary quality. Viking smiths produced pattern-welded blades with composite structures. Damascus steel is the most celebrated, but not the only example of ancient metallurgy that has taken modern science effort to fully understand. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Damascus steel, the forgotten metallurgy that could slice silk. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Damascus steel's exceptional properties resulted from the specific trace element chemistry of Indian wootz ore, particularly the presence of vanadium, chromium, and molybdenum, combined with the crucible product, ion process that achieved very high and consistent carbon content. The knowledge was craft knowledge passed within specific workshops, and its loss resulted from the depletion of the specific ore source rather than any deliberate concealment. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the carbon nanotube structures found in Damascus steel suggest that medieval Islamic metallurgists had discovered, through empirical practice, a production process that created nanoscale structures whose existence they see, would not have conceptualized, but whose effects they recognized in the superior performance of their blades, making Damascus steel the first known nanotechnology, however accidental. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the Damascus steel production process encoded significant empirical metallurgical knowledge about heat treatment, cooling rates, and material composition that was not equaled in European metallurgy until the industrial era, and that the Islamic world's documented superiority in this domain reflects a broader pattern of medieval Islamic scientific advancement that Western historiography has underestimated. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree, that is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Damascus steel, the forgotten metallurgy that could slice silk, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes electron microscopy of authentic Damascus steel blades has confirmed the presence of banded cementite structures at the nanoscale that differ from those produced by conventional modern steelmaking and that are directly responsible for the material's mechanical properties. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. Question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented edge retention testing of authentic Damascus steel blades conducted by arms historians has confirmed that the material maintains a functional cutting edge significantly longer than comparable European contemporary steel under equivalent use conditions. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed historical documents including Islamic metallurgical texts and European accounts from the Crusades confirm that Damascus blades were recognized as superior by contemporary users, ruling out the possibility that their reputation was purely mythological. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Damascus steel, the forgotten metallurgy that could slice silk. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The rediscovery of Damascus steel chemistry has had practical applications. Modern steels incorporating trace element combinations inspired by wootz analysis have been developed for cutting tools, surgical instruments, and industrial blades. The carbon nanotube finding, if confirmed, would represent the accidental synthesis of nanomaterials by medieval craftsmen, a remarkable illustration of how advanced empirical knowledge can anticipate theoretical science by centuries. The Damascus blade is no longer just a historical mystery. It is a materials science lesson in the value of ancient craft knowledge. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Damascus Steel, the forgotten metallurgy that could slice silk from the historical record through the physical evide, NCE, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Damascus Steel ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process, and the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.